The tiny amber vitamin bottle sat on the stainless counter like a harmless toy. A smiling cartoon bear promised gentle daily nutrition, the kind of label that calmed parents before they even read it. But on the cap, the batch stamp looked crowded, as if one extra character had been pressed in later with a slightly thicker edge. In the pediatric ICU, 2 cardiac monitors flatlined in perfect unison. Robert Stone pressed his forehead against the glass observation window until it fogged. His 6-month-old twins lay motionless in their cribs, their chests barely rising beneath tubes and wires. The ICU lights reflected off his expensive suit like a cruel reminder that money could buy everything except time. The best medical team money could assemble stood around the cribs with hands ready and faces tight. No one said the word, losing, but the alarm said it for them. Before we begin, please tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Dr. Patricia Wells had treated critically ill children for more than 25 years. She had pulled newborns back from failure with timing so precise, it looked like instinct. Tonight, she looked like a woman staring at a locked door with no key. "Mr. Stone," she said softly, "we've run every test we can run. Viral panels, genetic screens, metabolic workups, toxin scans." She swallowed. "We're seeing cellular breakdown across multiple organs, but we cannot identify what's triggering." Robert's hands trembled on the window frame. "Bring specialists from anywhere," he whispered. "I will pay anything." Dr. Wells held his gaze for a beat. "We already have the best available," she said. "Sometimes medicine reaches a limit before money does." Robert turned back to the cribs, as if the words had hit him physically. 2 identical faces, 2 fragile chests, 2 lives slipping at the same speed. He felt rich and powerless at the same time, and it made him sick. "How long?" he asked. Dr. Wells hesitated, and the hesitation was the truest answer. "Hours," she said. "Without a reversal, their bodies won't recover." But what Robert didn't know was that the first real clue wasn't in the blood work. It was sitting in his own bag, smiling up at him like a joke. No one noticed the cleaning cart gliding past the ICU doors. No one except Kelly Brown. Kelly was 15, and already tired in ways adults didn't recognize. She worked weekends and afternoons because her mother's paycheck didn't stretch far enough to cover rent and groceries. In the hospital, she was the quiet girl with a mop, easy to step around and easier to ignore. Kelly ignored nothing. She paused to replace a trash liner near the ICU corridor. A tote bag sat on a chair, half open, and on top of it was the amber bottle with the cartoon bear. Kelly's eyes locked onto the cap stamp. It wasn't cracked. It wasn't smudged. It looked altered. One character was thicker, pressed with a different edge, like it had been added after the rest. A tiny flaw most people would never notice, and if they did, they would assume it meant nothing. Kelly didn't assume. Inside the ICU, a nurse's voice cracked. "Dr. Wells, we're losing them again." Kelly's stomach tightened. She couldn't enter, couldn't touch, couldn't interrupt. Still, she forced herself to speak because silence felt like betrayal. At the nurse's station, she wiped the counter in steady circles. "Excuse me," she said gently. "Have the twins started any new supplement recently? Sometimes reactions can mimic infections." Nurse Linda Martinez didn't look up. Her tone was tired, sharp, automatic. "Honey, this is a medical emergency. We need the hallway cleaned. Nothing else." Kelly nodded once. "Yes, Mom." Business, moment 1. She rolled away, but the words stayed with her. New supplement was the kind of detail that didn't belong in a tragedy unless it mattered. A few minutes later, Kelly saw a resident moving fast with a tablet and a coffee he didn't have time to drink. She stepped close enough to be heard, careful not to block him, careful not to look bold. "Doctor," she said respectfully, "if both babies deteriorated after the same new product, it could be exposure, not genetics. The vitamin bottle code looks unusual." He didn't slow down. "Stick to your duties," he said. "This requires medical training." "Dismiss, moment 2. Kelly felt heat rise behind her eyes. She swallowed it because anger wasted seconds, and those twins did not have seconds. But what the doctors didn't know was that Kelly had been reading medical articles since she was 12. Not for grades, not for applause, but because she hated feeling helpless. Her grandmother had also taught her something else. Old remedies were not magic. They were patterns in chemistry people refused to translate. That night, the hospital quieted the way it always did after midnight. Visiting hours ended, lights dimmed, and the corridor became a place of whispers and wheels. Kelly finished her rounds early and stood outside the ICU doors, listening to machines argue with fate. She looked again at the bottle in the tote bag. That crowded stamp stared back like a secret. Kelly made a decision that scared her. Not because she wanted trouble, but because truth was the only thing that might save 2 lives. The records office was locked, but Kelly knew the building's habits. A side door sometimes didn't catch fully during the overnight shifts. When she tested it gently, it opened without force, like the hospital itself had been careless. Kelly slipped inside and moved as quietly as a shadow. She didn't search names. She searched symptoms, timelines, and repeated phrasing. She looked for clusters, not gossip. What she found made her breath catch. Not a mountain of cases, not enough to make a headline by itself. Just enough to form a pattern that could not be coincidence. Multiple infants had arrived with the same collapse. Sudden cellular breakdown, organ stress. Different families, different towns, the same terrifying trajectory. And in several scanned intake photos, the same amber bottle with the cartoon bear. Kelly zoomed in on the cap stamps. The same crowded imprint appeared again, and again, and again. The same thicker character looked like an extra fingerprint pressed onto plastic. But what made Kelly's blood go cold was one line buried in a record note. Supplement brand omitted per request. Per request? From whom? She copied only what mattered. Case identifiers, admission dates, and the already scanned label images. Then she laid the dates in order, simple and clean, and saw the same window repeated. Symptoms began within days of the vitamins. But what nobody realized was that the pattern wasn't just medical. It looked managed. Kelly backed out and closed the door exactly as she found it. She walked toward the ICU like she was carrying glass. Dr. Wells stepped out shortly after, shoulders heavy, eyes shadowed. Kelly met her in the corridor with hands clasped so they wouldn't shake. Dr. Wells, Kelly said, I think it's the vitamins. Dr. Wells blinked, startled that anyone was speaking to her about causes instead of comfort. Kelly, she said, recognizing the girl who cleaned her office. Why would you think that? Kelly didn't dramatize. I found multiple infant cases with the same symptoms, she said. They all had the same vitamins in intake photos. The cap stamp matches. The twins bottle has the same stamp. Dr. Wells' expression tightened. Show me. Kelly pointed to the tote bag. The bottle sat there like it had always been harmless. But what none of them expected was that the next obstacle wouldn't be medicine. It would be power. The hospital administrator arrived with 2 security officers, drawn by the cluster and the name stone. His eyes landed on Kelly's uniform and hardened. What's going on? He demanded. And why is janitorial staff involved in a critical case? Dr. Wells kept her voice level, because she noticed a pattern across pediatric admissions. The administrator's lips thinned. We do not make medical decisions on conjecture, he said. And we do not tolerate unauthorized access to records. Behind glass, a monitor chirped a warning. The sound cut through policy like a blade. Robert Stone stepped into the hallway, suit rumpled, eyes raw. Dude. Even exhausted, he carried authority like a shadow. If there's any chance my company's product is involved, Robert said. I want to know now. A nurse whispered to another nurse. A resident frowned. Security shifted their weight. The corridor's mood turned from urgency to suspicion, and it turned toward Kelly. You expect us to believe this, the administrator said, because a 15-year-old cleaner says so. In the critical second, the hallway became a crowd of doubt. Dismiss moment, 3 die. Kelly's mouth went dry. Dr. Wells looked trapped between act and consequences. Robert looked trapped between father and founder. Kelly understood something then. They wouldn't accept a quiet warning. They needed a picture they could not unsee. Mr. Stone, she said, may I hold the bottle? Robert hesitated, then handed it over with shaking hands. Kelly put on gloves. From her cart, she pulled a red marker used to label cleaning supplies. She drew a bold circle around the cap stamp. Then she held the bottle up at chest height. Robert Stone in an expensive suit. Kelly Brown in plain work clothes. 2 infants behind glass. And the small amber bottle centered between them, circled in red like a warning. The unthinkable image froze into the air. That stamp, Kelly said, is not standard. It looks modified. If this badge was altered, the code is the fingerprints someone didn't erase. Silence fell hard. Dr. Wells leaned closer, eyes narrowing. She's right, she murmured. That's not a normal imprint. Robert's face fractured, shock turning into rage. Test it, he said. Test everything. Subscribe now, because once the clue points back to a billionaire's own company, it gets darker before it gets better. Dr. Wells moved fast. She called toxicology and pharmacy. She asked the lab to screen the vitamin contents and compare the signature against the anonymized cluster Kelly flagged. Robert called his corporate quality hotline from the corridor. I need batch records, he snapped. Manufacturing logs, ingredient certificates, now. A calm corporate voice tried to soothe him with rehearsed confidence. Mr. Stone, our products meet all regulatory standards. There have been no confirmed adverse. Robert cut in, voice low and shaking. My sons are dying, he said. Don't sell me a slogan. The first rapid analysis came back with a warning. The vitamin solution contained a compound signature that did not belong in the approved formula. Not a harmless trace contaminant. An unlisted agent. But what they didn't know yet was whether it was negligence, sabotage, or something even worse. The administrator's phone buzzed. He stepped away, answered, and his posture changed. The stiffness of bureaucracy turned into cautious obedience. Yes, he said. I understand, Dr. Martinez. Dr. Wells' eyes sharpened. Who is that? The administrator covered the receiver. Stone Pharmaceuticals, he whispered. Their head of research. She says this is likely a misunderstanding. Kelly's stomach dropped. So the company already knew the hospital was looking. Dr. Wells held out her hand. Put it on speaker. The administrator hesitated. Robert didn't. Do it, Robert said. A woman's voice filled the corridor, smooth, confident, and patient. Mr. Stone, she said, I'm sure you're frightened, but early lab screens can mislead. If the hospital acts outside protocol, regulators will overreact and families will panic. Innocent families are already panicking, Robert snapped. My sons are dying. Then let my team handle analysis internally, the woman replied. We will manage this responsibly. Dr. Wells stepped forward. This is a hospital, she said, not a marketing department. A thin pause. The woman's tone cooled. Doctor, she said, if you proceed based on irregular access to records and mishandling of a product sample, you expose yourself to liability. But what she didn't say out loud was the real request. Delay. Dr. Wells didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. We are proceeding, she said. Robert's hands curled into fists. Stop talking about liability, he said. Talk about the children. The line went quiet for a beat, then the woman answered with sharpness. You do not understand research, she said. These things require discretion. Kelly stared at the phone. The words sounded polished, but the intent underneath them felt plain. Silence. Dr. Wells turned away from the call. Continue testing, she ordered. Then she met Robert's eyes. Your product is involved, she said. Either contaminated or deliberately altered. Robert's throat worked. Who would do that? Kelly kept her voice even. Someone who believed no one would connect the cases, she said. Someone who relied on people dismissing what they didn't want to see. But what worried Kelly most was simple. If someone could alter supplements, they could also try to stop the investigation. Dr. Wells faced her team. We treat now, she said. They began supportive detox measures appropriate for infants under strict monitoring. Stabilization, organ support, and countering the suspected mechanism as safely as possible. It wasn't cinematic. It was relentless. Kelly didn't pretend to be a clinician. She stayed near the doorway and offered one thing carefully. My grandmother taught me about binder preparations for specific exposures, Kelly said quietly to pharmacy. Not a cure, a binder. Something that can help the body pull out what it cannot process. The pharmacist didn't laugh. Not after the lab screen. They checked interactions and safety constraints. They prepared an adjunct binder solution compatible with clinical monitoring and infant dosing protocols. But what nobody could predict was whether the twins' bodies had time left to respond. At the bedside, the IVs flowed. The monitors drew stubborn lines. Minutes stretched into a silent argument. Then Nathan's monitor shifted first, a small improvement that held. His color warmed by a shade, like life had decided to lean back in. Nicholas followed. His eyelids fluttered, as if he was climbing out of deep water. A thin cry escaped him, weak but alive. Robert Stone made a broken sound and gripped the crib rail as if he could hold his sons in the world by force. Dr. Wells watched the numbers stabilize and finally let herself breathe. "They're responding," she whispered. "Stay with us, because saving the twins is only the beginning, and now they have to expose who did this before it happens again." Once the children stabilized, Dr. Wells documented everything. Symptom onset, product exposure, preliminary lab findings, and the cap code images went into a single clean timeline. That single micro clue, the altered stamp, became the thread investigators could follow without guessing. Regulators were notified with an urgent hazard report. A recall alert began circulating. Parents were told to stop using the vitamins immediately and seek pediatric evaluation if symptoms appeared. Robert's executives begged him to wait for internal review and control messaging. Robert looked at them like strangers. "My sons were hours from death," he said. "There is no message worth a child's heartbeat." He called federal authorities himself. "If my company harmed children," he said, voice shaking, "I want the person responsible arrested. I do not care who it is." But what the agents found next proved this wasn't a mistake. It was a system. Also, manufacturing records were forced open. Investigators compared internal lot markers to reported outcomes. The same approvals and special batch adjustments appeared again and again under one name. Dr. Angela Martinez Tonti, head of research and development. Warrants followed. Servers were seized. Labs were searched. Agents found internal documents referencing an experimental compound that had never been cleared for infant use. They found a lot marker code that matched the altered cap stamp, an add-on indicator used to identify enhanced lots without printing anything on the label. They found downgraded complaint logs, edited incident notes. They found instructions to keep external reports minimal. Dr. Martinez called it innovation. She called it progress. She called adverse reactions acceptable risk. A judge called it something else. She was arrested and charged. The recall expanded again. Hospitals received screening protocols, and babies who had only begun to show symptoms were treated before reaching collapse. Back in the ICU, Robert Stone stood beside his sons as they slept, finally peaceful. The red-circled bottle sat on the counter like a scar. He turned to Kelly, who hovered near the door as if she still expected to be told to leave. "My children are alive because you refused to be quiet," he said. Kelly didn't smile. "I just didn't want them to die," she said. "And I didn't want other families to lose their babies because nobody listened." Dr. Wells stepped closer. Her voice softened, but her eyes stayed honest. "We dismissed you," she said. "I'm sorry." Kelly's gaze stayed clear. "It happens," she said. "To people like me, it happens every day." Robert swallowed hard. "Tell me what to do," he said. "Not for headlines, for real." Kelly took a breath. "Build something that listens," she said. "A place where knowledge is tested fairly no matter where it comes from, and where no one can hide harm behind titles." Dr. Wells nodded. "Independent oversight," she said. "Transparent ethics. Collaboration between rigorous science and validated traditional practice." Robert looked at his sons, then back at Kelly. "You'll have a seat at the table," he said. "Not as a symbol, as a voice." 2 years later, the Stone Research Institute opened. It was not a palace, and it was not a slogan. It funded ethical pediatric research, community screening programs, and public review boards that could not be silenced by donors, because donors were not the oversight. On opening day, Kelly stood in a modest auditorium. Nathan and Nicholas, healthy 4-year-olds, sat in the front row beside their father, swinging their feet. Kelly spoke briefly, because some truths don't need speeches. We prove something, she said. A single detail can save a life. Listening can be the difference between a headline and a heartbeat. She paused once, letting the room breathe. Never ignore the quiet voice, Kelly said. Sometimes it is the only one telling the truth. Make sure you're subscribed because the next twist hits even harder. How would you rate this story out of 10? We are curious about your positive or negative comments. Would you share them with us in the comments? Like every YouTube channel, our channel needs support. If you want to show your support, please subscribe, like the video, and turn on notifications. Thank you in advance for your support. Disclaimer. This is a dramatization inspired by real events and fictional scenarios. Names and details have been changed. This is not medical or legal advice.